Cronin.
All right, welcome to Juice in the Morning, the NFL Sunday morning edition. You guys are getting some hopefully pregame entertainment from us, and also potentially winning some money from DraftKings with some of these lineups from Paulie. John had to skip today because of staying up all night working on Pro Football Focus game reviews. He was up till 6 a.m., so we just called him, and he was feeling a little groggy. So it's just going to be Paulie and I today, and just to start with, Paulie's got some lineups for you.
Hey, guys. We're going to do the Paulies Sleepers lineups. Some situations we're really keying in on this week is the fact that Matt Forte is out, and Bilal Powell just he does amazing when he gets a lion's share, and I think he will. They also have Elijah McGuire, who will probably get 7-10 carries, but I mean that Tampa Bay game could be blow up potential. So you want a piece of the Tampa Bay Jets game or several pieces. Orleans Darkwa is very interesting. Giants out at San Francisco. They're worst 32 DVOA against the run. And your DVA is just your DVOA is just your points allowed per that position. Oh, okay. So and you got to really pay attention to things like that. And he's so cheap. So we like Jared Goff this week, and I think he's at home and he had a blow up week, and he's one of those guys that
last week.
Yeah, he's one of those guys though that people don't believe in yet. Like when they didn't believe in Alex Smith, and they were just like, no. We've seen too much 8-point, 10-point Alex Smith to believe this. But yeah. So I think he's on the rise there. And then in my video this week on my YouTube video, I just talked about connections that are forming, and it's really interesting to look how Josh McCown and Jared Goff are really getting it done, and they're in smash spots this week. So I gave out 6 lineups last night, and there's a couple that I'm kind of not feeling as good about. So
speaking real quick, sorry about Josh McCown. He's starting for the Jets, right? And the Jets were, everybody was all saying the Jets were going to suck all year this year, and then all of a sudden you're getting some fantasy value out of the guys. So what the hell happened?
He's just, that team is way better than what everybody, thought they were going to be. And just kind of the public opinion was that they were, going to tank. Yeah. And that's not the case at all. They just got rid of a lot of older, higher priced guys that they didn't want to pay for anymore to see what the youth they had on their, on the second and third string guys that they had belief in. And it's great. Yeah. I mean, it's working out great, and some guys, sometimes these guys just need to get in the right system. And that's like Alex Smith, Oh, yeah. I talked about it last week, everybody just assumed he was a game manager and not a fantasy kind of guy you want to play like like Flacco or something like that. But Flacco's flashed before, and he can sling it, and so can Alex Smith, and that's what they're asking him to do. So McCown's just, they play up-tempo, so it's just a great situation. They've got great running backs and Robbie Anderson.
Not a lot of pressure, like we were talking off the air. Like it's not a lot of pressure if everybody thinks you're just going to tank the season.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Pressure's off. How we were talking about backup quarterbacks before the podcast, which we'll talk about here soon. Yep. But
go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. McCown and Robbie Anderson and Austin Safarian Jenkins are getting it done, and that's kind of a revenge narrative too. There's Ryan Fitzpatrick, who used to start for the Jets, playing at home for Tampa Bay this week, because Winston is out and Mike Evans is suspended. So who's he going to throw it to, Chris Godwin is a practice squad guy that he has that rapport with. And you always talk about your theories. The one that I always think about is when that backup comes in, a lot of times they try to move someone in that he's used to playing with, and it's someone no one's ever heard of, and those are the fantasy darlings sometimes.
That's I like that.
So Chris Godwin, and having said that, I did not have the sack to put him in any of my lineups. So I don't even know why we're talking about him right now. But I like McCown to Robbie Anderson. So that's the first stack we're doing. Luke McCown to Robbie Anderson, at running back Leonard Fournette and Alvin Kamara, Mohamed Sanu, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyler Kroft, Jordan Howard, and the Bears.
Nice. And Schuster, man, just the Steelers just create wide receivers. I think we already talked about that last week.
Well, they create opportunities, but he was God gave him the ability to do that well. He's David Letter of intent for the Oregon Ducks, and didn't grab the helmet on draft day. Grabbed USC,
Wow.
and was just a monster for USC. He's fast. He's big. Last week had, or 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago or last week had the franchise record 97-yard.
It's crazy.
Touchdown run.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And he also had his bike stolen.
He did, and his Twitter account is awesome. Did we talk about that last week?
No.
Oh, you didn't. I didn't talk about his Madden rating and all that.
No.
So somebody said that like on that 97-yarder, he kind of turned around and there were 3 guys behind him, and he had blown them all out of the water. Mm-hmm. But some people were kind of criticizing. How do you criticize someone on a 90? But just kind of jabbing at him, like, hey, why'd you turn around?
Yeah.
And he said my Madden rating is 82, and I was a little worried that they were going to catch up to me because Madden says I'm slow.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, he'll be a 91 on the next update.
At least
higher.
91.
So, that's the first stat. You want me to move on to a couple more stats here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Eli Manning at San Francisco this week, he's been put on notice. The coach said, no, we're not opposed to starting someone else.
Oh, wow.
And they've got, I don't know the rookie's name. That's where I was hoping on John because he'll jump in on that. But anyway, there's another guy there that they probably want to see how he does. And so, the Niners are horrible. Mm-hmm. And one of the stats that people talk about is they're so horrible, but they're good against the tight ends. But the guy that guards their tight ends, their linebacker, is out this week.
Okay.
Ingram is in a good spot.
Yeah.
And then we pair him with Shepard. Sterling Shepard is his number one that came back from injury last week.
And it kind of goes to my theory of the contract year. I mean, if Eli's put on notice, he's going to probably try to play hard so he doesn't lose that starting job.
And he doesn't have OBJ, so he's got to make some things happen.
Yeah.
He's done it in the past, just enough to get by and get 2 Super Bowls.
And I just can't wait to see more pictures of him on the sideline if he does get pulled.
Right. But Sterling Shepard's going against the Pro Football Focus's worst ranked cornerback in the league.
Okay.
Out of 114 ranked cornerbacks, he's 114.
Jesus.
When they also have other cornerbacks that play that are 90s and above. I mean, they literally have 3 of the worst 15 cornerbacks in the league. He's in a smash spot there.
Yeah, looking for Eli right there.
So we're going to do this stack, Eli and Ingram and Orleans Darkwa, Bilal Powell, Antonio Brown, AJ Green, and then we're going to do Garrett Selleck, the tight end on the other side for the Niners, starting for George Kittle. Because he's cheap. Big Paulies sleeper this week is Garrett Selleck. He's 2,500. You got to scroll all the way to the bottom to find him. So I don't know that a lot of people will look about it, but people are talking about him. Yeah. I mean, I do my first video on Tuesday, and I think I explained that before. It's a first take, and I want to get it out before all this stuff comes out because I don't want people thinking I'm just, listening to what everybody else says and then saying it. Yeah. And, I've had some really good weeks, and usually throughout the week as I listen to other stuff, they're talking about these guys. Yeah. So I talked about Selleck on Tuesday, and everybody, I was listening this morning. They're like, Garrett Selleck, and I'm like, shit. But, it's
good to be on the cusp of it, though.
A lot of casual players aren't listening to all that. They're just, plug and playing and playing guys they like. Yep. And sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't, but they're not as informed.
Yeah.
And that's who we're playing against. I advise my listeners to put in $20 in their DraftKings account. And then if you crap out, you can put like $5 in at a time after that. But there's quarter tournaments, dollars. I say do the dollars or $2. But especially in the beginning, you're eligible for the casual tournaments, and that's exactly what it is. Yep. And when you look at the winning scores, they're much less than the bigger scores too. So
for sure.
I play all the way from that all the way up to the $20 millionaire. So it's like 176,000 people, but first place gets $1 million.
That's crazy.
And the lineup last week that won got 214 points, and I had 2 that were 171 and 174 that I gave out on your show last week.
So you were just right there.
So this one is Eli, Darkwa, Powell, Antonio Brown, AJ Green, Sterling Shepard, Garrett Selleck, Leonard Fournette, and the Jets defense. And then we have 3 variations of a Jared Goff. I'll go a little quicker, but I like Jared Goff at home this week against Houston. Their run defense is actually really good. They're like 3rd ranked run defense, but their secondary is like 26th.
Yeah.
And Ty just burned him last week, and that was one of the guys I gave out last week that just had a huge week. So Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp or Sammy Watkins, one of those guys is going to have that week. It's hard to tell. I mean, when you look at the cornerback wide receiver matchups on Pro Football Focus, Kupp has the best matchup.
Yeah. And he's kind of like a guy that's like under the radar as well right now because he's consistently getting it done, but just not really blowing up to where people are like, oh, we got to get on this guy.
He's got blow up potential for sure, and has had one or two pretty
substantial games.
So and Le'Veon Bell's in a smash spot on the road against the Colts, so we're playing a lot of him.
I'm getting ready to go watch him do his patient running all over them. I guarantee it.
So you're going to the game. That's why we're trying to go a little quicker today. I don't know if we're accomplishing that, though. I feel like I'm dragging.
No, you're doing great. This is good.
God bless you for going to that game and watching because the Colts will probably get smashed. I don't know. They've surprised me before, though.
Yeah, they always seem to play to the level of their competition.
Well, I wouldn't say always. But so we're going to do Goff with Bell, Bilal Powell, A.J. Green, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, so both of his wide receivers there, or two of the three, Kyle Rudolph, Vernon Davis, and the Jets.
Nice.
So two tight ends in the bottom. So Jordan Reed is out this week.
Yep.
So Vernon Davis, like I said last week, is a must play if he's the starter because it's just it's a lock.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Rudolph on the other side. Those are two tight ends in that Skins Vikings game that I think will both have big games.
Awesome.
The Redskins are also really bad against tight ends, and that's just because teams figure out that this is how we have to get this done.
Yeah.
We got to go in the middle of the field because Josh Norman and the secondary there are amazing.
Yeah,
so
studs.
tight ends usually get a lot. And then the Jets D on that one. Goff, again, this is the second Goff lineup with Bell, Fournette, Cole Beasley, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Cameron Brate, Orleans Darkwa, and the Jets.
So what's who the Jets playing against today?
The Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah, because you're going with the fact that they're playing against a team that's down Mike Evans and their starting quarterback. So
they're really cheap, and Fitz has been known to. I mean, I think he had a 6 interception game a few years ago. So I mean.
Sorry, I'm
yeah,
just laughing about that.
6.
Yeah.
And
the Jets are going to be coming for him. Probably,
yeah, and they're cheap. So I like the Jets and the Bears. All these lineups are Jets or Bears. So the Bears at home against Green Bay, and the Bears have been playing great at home, and Green Bay is just not getting it done yet.
We were talking about it last week that I had all those Lions players playing, and they helped me come back from down 50 to win in my season-long fantasy.
Oh yeah.
So the defense was playing against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, Lions at home against Cleveland. I mean, I did a Lions stack, but Stafford to Marvin Jones, Golden Tate would be a good stack today. I don't have one of those ready.
But so those are the lineups right now. So which one do you feel the best about? Or do you have a couple?
Well, because of Bell and Goff, you got to go with. I don't know. Actually, with Antonio Brown and A.J. Green, we'll go with the Eli one.
I do like that with
Eli
the wide receivers.
Eli, Darkwa, Powell, Antonio Brown, A.J. Green, Sterling Shepard, Garrett Selleck, Leonard Fournette, the Jets. So I
like that lineup.
Yeah, that'll be it. I starred that one earlier when you asked me to pick one. All right, so that's it. If we've got time, I got one more later maybe.
Yeah. For sure. No, the thing that we were talking about off the air was the quarterback play. So my theory, and John was going to kind of also jump in on this, so maybe he can give us an update next week if he listens. So my theory with quarterbacks and daily fantasy and as well as season-long fantasy, if you're going into a week and there is a bye and you need a quarterback, and say there is a situation like the Mike Evans and the Jameis Winston, you maybe pick up that backup quarterback because the team, if it's a kind of a last-minute situation, the team throws in a new guy. So a lot of the times in my, feelings, the guy will end up having a big game. He'll have a couple touchdowns. He might throw an interception or two, but maybe he has 2 or 3 touchdowns as well to add to that. So that still kind of outweighs the negatives. And then you have a guy that's replaced the guy that replaced a guy on bye or gave you a chance to kind of have a lottery ticket, whereas if you just picked up a guy that's, in a bad place, or maybe he's just the starter on a team that's not very good, you have a better chance with I'm not really being very clear. So
that's all right. I think I get what you're saying.
So the backup comes in, has a good game because the team didn't game plan for that guy. That's basically what I'm saying.
Right. And when we were talking about it earlier, I think that's the key, and you mentioned that a couple times earlier, game planning. So these guys that come in, the other team's not ready, and coaches always look for every chance they can get to not tell anyone who's, if there's ever a choice between the two, he'll say, it's game time decision. Yep. So, they have to announce their injuries, but they don't have to announce their starters.
Exactly. And
so, sometimes those guys come in and statistically you look at it, especially if you look at how much time they played, and you're like, wow, in 2 quarters he had a full game. This guy is going to be awesome. Yeah. So your theory is he's not always awesome.
Not right? Always awesome, but that very first game you have a chance for him to go off, and then after that defenses do game plan for that guy. Defenses take away what they see as mistakes. They see as because you may have film on a guy, but until that guy's the starter, they don't really I guarantee you they don't study that guy as much as they study the guy that's typically the starter.
So what do you think about Fitzpatrick this week at home?
Well, we did just talk about the fact that he's not scared to turn the ball over, so he's definitely gonna be throwing it still.
Yeah,
he's not worried about that. So there's a chance that maybe he throws 3 interceptions, but maybe he throws 2 or 3 touchdowns too.
Right. Yeah, he'll sling it.
Yep.
And that's going to be a high-powered game.
And they've got the. Tampa Bay, they do have Deshaun Jackson still, and I know that he's going to be a little bit more covered, but he's still that home run threat anytime he's on the field.
And Cameron Brate and Adam Humphries and Chris Godwin and
I do.
Muscle Hamster hasn't been doing.
I do understand though that just because Mike Evans is out, that doesn't increase Deshaun Jackson's value. Just because of the fact that Deshaun Jackson's value is that home run threat,
right?
And taking away a guy that is a guy that takes a lot of the heat from the secondary.
He'll be seeing shadow coverage from Maurice Claiborne, who the Cowboys actually drafted and didn't really work out too well, but has been doing much better in the Jet system, and he's a good corner. So I think, Fitz, you got to look at Cameron Brate.
Mm-hmm.
When those guys come in, they're going to rely on the tight ends, and that's a pretty strong narrative to follow.
Well, I can't wait to see, because we can actually literally watch my theory play out today. So that's pretty awesome. So if you guys are paying attention and you're watching all the games, make sure you check out the Tampa Bay Jets game so that we can see if the theory of the backup quarterback coming in and having a good game, or at least statistically having a fantasy football good game. Doesn't mean he has to win the game, but if he scores a lot of points, then that confirms my theory. And then if he sucks dick, then we understand that it contradicts the theory.
Well, John will have more research, and then he'll let you know.
Yeah. So how do you feel about? You've already talked about what you said with Fitzpatrick. How do you feel about backups coming in as starters?
You just got to be careful. There's a lot of really bad ones in the league, but he's a journeyman and's been around. And he's proven that he can have a stinker.
Yep.
But also, if you need a flyer
yep.
or a cheap salary on DraftKings, then why not? Those are the kind of call me crazy plays that work.
May win you some money,
and it happens all the time. And then and then next week he'll probably not do so well. I don't know who they play next week, but
we're just assuming.
Yeah. Well, next week maybe Winston will be back. Maybe Winston.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so that takes us to what we originally talked about with this podcast for the month of November, was kind of giving a preview of the playoffs. So your fantasy football playoffs, if you're in season long situations, and you have done some research and figured out that there's some pretty good matchups for some teams in the fantasy football playoffs. So tell us a little bit about what you think with those.
I started looking at this a couple weeks ago, and it's things that you don't really want to think about when you're drafting your team, because a lot of times your team is a lot different at the end. I do pay attention to it more and more now.
Yeah.
But, also you don't know what defenses are going to be. That changes all the time. So a lot of times if you think there's a plus matchup, somebody has a juicy, those defenses end up being good, and it's not as good. But as the season goes along, I want to see, especially if my team's doing what they're supposed to be doing and I'm looking good for the playoffs, I want to see what those matchups are weeks 14, 15, 16. And this year there's just some really crazy ones developing right now. I mean, obviously injuries and all that
can change,
derail everything. And the injury bug has been crazy this year.
Yeah, I think was it Adam Schefter that took advantage of Twitter expanding their character limit, and he just like put a huge list of like all of these big name guys that are out, and it's like
they had to do it just for Shefty because Shefty's awesome, and there was a lot to talk about. And anybody associated with Twitter that plays fantasy football, and I'm sure there's a few of them, were probably like, we need to give him like 500 characters.
Yeah, we just need to give him
this
the whole
once. We need to give him. Did they increase it for real? I don't follow Twitter. Too much.
They increased it for everybody. Everybody gets 280 now. But no, Schefter did post that, and it was like insane to see that amount of guys that are just off the field for the rest of the season this year.
Playing season long, you just have to roll with the punches. And now, I mean, I lost David Johnson and Dalvin Cook in my work league, but had drafted well enough and could pick up the waiver wire early well enough to
you gotta be able
put
to
a
play
team
the
out there
wire.
and do it. I mean, it's not. It's not the worst thing in the world. Sometimes it could be good for your team when one of your guys, it makes you kind of go after it. And
well, one thing that I'm very excited about is the two leagues that I was in, I was really pinpointing Marshawn Lynch, and then I didn't get him because somebody else was like, "Oh, I'm going to get him," and I'm glad
they
that
did
worked
you a
out.
favor.
I'm glad I worked out and got Ingram instead of Marshawn Lynch.
So the schedules for weeks 14, 15, 16, there's 8 or 9 teams here, I think, that really have plus matchups throughout to, if your trade deadline, if you have a trade deadline in your season league, a lot of them do. Yeah. Some of them don't, but most of the competitive ones that I've done have a trade deadline, and in my league of record, it's next week.
Yeah.
So usually it's not over yet. Over the next couple weeks, your league will probably have a trade deadline. Look to trade for guys that play on these teams.
Yep.
And like we talked about last week, get guys who you like. I mean, don't I sometimes overanalyze all this because I get geeked up about it.
Because of it.
Yeah, but there's stuff going on that looks really good. So we're looking at the Chiefs' schedule, and they've been vulnerable the last few weeks. Dallas really gave the blueprint for how to shut them down. Yeah. But these defenses here, I don't think have the wherewithal to look at a blueprint. They haven't gotten their base defense down that they want to do, let alone say that they're going to scheme for anything. So I think the Chiefs are looking really good with 3 home games in a row.
That's important.
It's not only important; it never happens.
I've always been playing. I've been playing that a lot this year, and something I never looked at before was. Like, is a majority of my team on the road this week? Mm-hmm. Maybe I should, if I'm like up in the air between two guys.
You had that last week, but you ended up all right.
Yeah,
it's not always the be all end all,
exactly.
But it's definitely. And when I play DraftKings and I'm putting money out on the line, I always go for home. I mean, all these running backs are home guys except for Kamara, but I got to stay in the flames on that one.
Him and Ingram are having a year. It's crazy.
Did you see him spin out of that tackle on the one touchdown last week? No, it was like a really low like karate pirouette.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was insane. So the Chiefs are at home against Oakland, and then the Chargers, and then the Dolphins. And that's your fantasy playoffs.
All teams that are that don't scare me as defensive teams.
They should not. And people that are worried about Kareem Hunt right now,
yeah,
and they're on a bye, so Kareem Hunt isn't out there this week, but he's been underperforming, and
he's getting some rest.
Yeah, and he will eat at home. So I mean, don't worry about Hunt. Don't trade him away.
No,
look to trade for Hunt. Right now, because some Hunt owners are like becoming disenfranchised, even though he's doing so great. The last 3 games have declined, and he hasn't scored in like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and then we have the Saints at home with Ingram and Kamara, we talk about all the time. Breeze and Mike Thomas and all those guys. Ted Ginn Jr.
He's just blown up this year.
Yeah. I mean, trade for him.
My wife has him on her team, and I don't. She literally, I think, picked him up just because his name, she was saying Ted Gin. And she was like, gin and juice.
Gin and juice. There you go. That's awesome. That's like the gal that wins the NCAA bracket.
She picked
That's
all
like, well, I like the Green Ducks. So the Saints play in the fantasy playoffs at Atlanta, at home against the Jets, and then at home against Atlanta.
Oh, wow. That's weird that they play Atlanta two out of the 3 weeks in a row.
Right. It's weird and fantasy tasty. Usually that second game lightens up a little bit because they both schemed twice.
Yep.
But, New Orleans defense has gotten better this year. But, that's just – I don't know. I just love that playoff look right there.
I know this is another weird, probably stats backing it up theory, but the Saints tend to play better at home than they do on the road. And that a lot of the times comes down to, in my mind, Drew Brees. Drew Brees plays better at home than he does on the road. So actually, that road game might look better for your running backs because of the fact that if Brees isn't getting it done, they're going to rely on the running backs to get it done.
The fantasy guys to have are Ingram and Kamara, and they've talked about going to a running game. When they went to the Super Bowl, when they beat us in the Super Bowl, beat the Colts that year, I mean, they had a really strong run game that year, and that was a down year for him. Mm-hmm. The defense, though, has been playing strong at home and on the road.
Yeah, that's good. And you need that.
Yeah, so Breeze definitely plays better at home. I wouldn't play him this week in DraftKings, but their defense is great. And the ones to focus on all across the board, whether you play daily or season long or draft or whatever, is Ingram and Kamara.
Yeah. I had them at one time, both of them on my team, and I could have probably just, if I would have kept them, played them both.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just wish I wouldn't have dropped Kamara because I was like, I'll just stick with my starter, and then whatever. And I also had Aaron Jones from the Green Bay Packers, but he didn't do well this week. So.
My buddy Blaine, shout out to Blaine Hansen. Yep. He's one of my original subscribers on YouTube. He's a cheesehead, and they're going through rough times. But he says give Huntley a chance.
Yep.
It takes time for a quarterback to get acclimated, and a lot of times you need a road game to kind of kick you in the teeth a little bit.
Yep.
So I don't think he thinks he's going to do well this week, and neither do I. But he's in a good offense with a lot of good players. So I hope it works out for him because I'd like to. I mean, a lot of these teams have been derailed by major injuries.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see. There's still pieces in place. It'd be nice to see a couple of these teams, brush themselves off and get competitive because it's very polarizing right now. It's funneling down to like 6 or 7 teams that everyone's talking about right now.
And I know that the eye test is kind of a cliche thing to say, but like when it comes to Aaron Jones and Montgomery, Aaron Jones looks like a running back. Like he runs hard. He always looks like he's getting extra yardage after the first contact and everything like that. So
Montgomery is a very good gadget guy. Like, like every team's always, a lot of teams have wanted a Percy Harvin or a Tavon Austin that, they don't produce consistently. And neither is he, but that's because they need to figure out some way to, to get him back into that role that he used to be in.
Yeah.
Not... he's not the running back.
Aaron
Jones is a good running back for them. Yeah.
I think they should stick with him too.
So Atlanta in the fantasy playoffs plays at home against New Orleans, at Tampa Bay, and then at New Orleans. So that looks like a good schedule for them. And then, like you said, running backs, because New Orleans secondary is a beast. So it's having Coleman, Devontae Freeman there. And then, Tampa Bay just can't do anything. Yeah. So if you have a bye in those fantasy playoffs, and then, you're looking at just playing weeks 15 and 16, Atlanta's got Tampa Bay week 15. That's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Oakland plays at Kansas City. Their secondary is horrible. They've got Crabtree and Cooper there. So at Kansas City, week 14, at home against Dallas, week 15, their secondary is horrible.
Yeah.
And then at Philly, week 16.
Ooh.
And Philly puts up big games, and so do the teams against them. Their defense isn't that great.
So they're kind of just going for the we've got more offense than you do.
And they sure do in most cases. But Oakland's one of the teams that could go, no.
Yeah. How do you feel about the is it Jay Did he go to the Eagles?
It's fantastic. They love him, and people were saying, well, that's a committee there, and there's Blunt, and there's Smallwood.
How did he do last week? Did
fantastic.
Yeah, he had a big week,
7
didn't he?
for 83 and a touchdown.
Jesus.
And he also was targeted 5 times and caught a couple balls, so that's what you want in PPR. And people,
he's going to feast there. Then.
Yeah, he's been in a bad spot where the team isn't using him in the passing game. Their offensive line is bad. Adam Gase is not getting it done there. I mean, they've got weapons with Devontae Parker and Jarvis Landry. He flashed those. He only had 3 200-yard games last year, but it just wasn't getting it done. He's perfect for them, and Philly's leading the league in short goal to go rushing situations, and LeGarrette Blount's not getting it done this year. He's got like 1 out of 11.
Yeah, Jesus.
So they were desperate to do something, and they just made the one hole that they had. I mean, they've got a lot of holes on defense, but like you said, they can outscore you.
Yep.
The one hole they had on offense was that consistent running back, and it'll be Ajayi. I mean, he is pumped, and so are they.
That's awesome.
There's a joke we were talking about, Ajayi when he was with Miami, like setting it up to where when one of the coaches be walking by, he'd be watching film of himself catching balls in college because he was a pass catching running back in college and would catch 4, 5, 6 balls a game and have his feet up on the desk. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, I'm just watching video of myself, catching Like, did you guys know? Because it just sucks when teams don't figure that out, and Philly's smart enough to figure that out. They went out and got the best guy right now to fit their offense. So
it felt like they hated him in Miami. Like they were just like, oh, we'll just use you to get the end zone, and then we'll do something else. Or like he would march down the field, and then they would either take him out, or it just was weird in Miami. Like it was an interesting situation for Ajayi to be in Miami.
He might get a few less touches, but they're going to be quality.
Well, a lot more, quality over quantity.
Yeah. And they've got a really high-ranked offensive line. I mean, they just didn't, Blunt wasn't the guy.
Yeah, and the Eagles are also another team that I don't really think about a whole lot because I don't follow them very closely. But they're killing it this year.
Yeah, fantasy smash. Just all those guys are blowing up.
Jen, my wife, also has Zach Ertz. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know how she picked that out of the hat. But
the Giants have Dallas at home, and Philly at home, and then at Arizona.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and those are guys you can get cheap right now, too. Get Sterling Shepard.
Yep.
Get Ingram. Maybe there's an owner that's worried that he's not going to keep getting it done, and they're gonna bench Eli or something.
Yep.
So that's a fantastic spot there. I mean, that's 4, or 3 teams that I'm not worried about: Dallas, Philly, and Arizona. Carolina. So this would be a good one, especially if you had that bye, or if you had someone else to play the first week. This is not a smash for all 3 weeks.
Yeah.
They play Minnesota at home, 14, but then they play Green Bay at home and Tampa Bay at home.
Yeah.
So they have 3 home games in the fantasy playoffs too.
Yeah. So you guys listening, if you know, or if you're not sure what we're talking about, we're not talking this week. We're talking about fantasy playoffs. So just to remind you,
right? You're right.
Some people might get lost while they're
hopefully your season-long league has playoffs in the Super Bowl in week 16.
Yep.
So it's 14, 15, 16,
Yep,
and a lot of leagues have a bye.
Yep.
So if you could secure that bye, you're not worried about that 14 matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
But three home games in a row is just amazing. So I mean, the first one's tough.
Yeah,
they're going to continue to be at home and be rested, and it continually gets better. I mean, Tampa Bay is the worst.
Yeah, ours doesn't have a bye because we only do 4 teams, 2 from each conference. So it's just one game, then you're done. So, but still, it matters. It matters all the way to the end like that.
Tampa Bay plays Detroit at home, Atlanta at home, and then at Carolina.
Okay.
Buffalo, I think it has the most intriguing one of all.
So that's an interesting fun.
Buffalo is sorry, what?
No, that's just an interesting thing because my wife has had Drew Brees and Tyrod Taylor all year, and she's never been able to decide which one to start. And Tyrod Taylor might be a one to start.
Well, maybe Breeze will have a couple blow-up games. I mean, if there's no trade deadline or whatever, I mean, she should advise her to trade Breeze for value.
That's what I'm saying.
Something. Because Tyrod, I mean, he won't always win, and they've been winning. I think they're like 6-2 or 5-3. They've been winning more, but I mean, he's fantasy just goodness with his rushing.
Absolutely.
So he plays the Colts at home. Then he plays Miami at home.
Yeah.
Then he plays at New England.
Ooh. The New England one's the scary one.
Not really. Fantasy quarterbacks have been lighting them up.
I always think that because of just Bill Belichick. Like I always think like
they have tightened up a little bit the last couple weeks, but Tim Hightower, their middle linebacker has been in and out, and when he's out, they're really bad. And I think he's trying to nurse back from something pretty bad. Okay. I mean, because he can't stay on the field. And then McCourty's in and out too. Mm-hmm. So he's their cornerback. Cornerback. So when those guys are in and out, they're worse, but they're not good. Yeah. So at New England shouldn't scare you at all. Yeah. That one would be like it will scare people. Yeah. I hope it scares the fantasy community too, because I will load up. I mean the DraftKings, because I will load up on Tyrod because he's won me a bunch of money this year.
For sure.
I'm scared with him against the Saints this week because the Saints have just been, like I said, getting it done. Yeah. So that's it. Those are the teams I really like.
I like
for
it.
Fantasy.
So if you guys stuck around long enough to hear the end of this, Paulie's going to give his last lineup, and then we're going to get out of here.
All right. So the last one is, so I gave Eli, Luke McCown. So Luke McCown, Robbie Anderson. There's the stack there. Leonard Fournette, Alvin Kamara, Mohamed Sanu, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyler Kroft, Jordan Howard, and the Bears.
I like that one. That one's that's definitely different than your others. So like, because you like a lot of them, you had some of the same players. That one seems like you kind of went in a different direction.
Yeah, got to do that sometimes because if you load up or you have exposure to one player in too many situations and he doesn't get it done, it just craps the whole thing.
And Luke, you said Luke McCown?
One of the McCown brothers. Doesn't every team?
I didn't even know.
Isn't every team required to have a McCown in the quarterback?
There was a Luke McCown. Who's he playing for?
That's the Jets.
Oh, okay.
At Tampa Bay. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's Luke McCown, but
I thought it was Josh. That's my bad.
Maybe it is. You're right.
That's okay.
There are like 10 of them, so I don't.
No, I
wasn't prepared to answer that question.
You're completely fine. I just thought that was like, I was like, dude, is there another McCown out there? And I'm sure there is because you just mentioned that there's 10 of them. But no, I like that lineup. I like the Bears side of it.
Yeah, if you've still got time to put in lineups, there's other guys I'm interested in. Rod Smith is the backup for Dallas today with Alfred Morris starting with Zeke suspended. And Rod Smith is the coach, running back coach there, loves him. There's been a lot of hype about this guy out of Ohio State, second year. He does everything.
Ohio State does produce running backs as well.
And he does it well. So Alfred Morris is getting long in the tooth. McFadden is 30. He had 1,000 yards rushing last year and didn't get hurt, but I mean he's very injury prone. I think they want to give it to somebody that they can give it to a lot. Yeah. So Morris is going to get every opportunity. I just look for that to possibly flip flop. Yep. And I think that Rod Smith is in a way better situation than Darren McFadden right now. And McFadden has been like fourth on the depth chart. He's the odd man out right now. So him and Cole Beasley. Atlanta is like the worst against slot receivers, and he had 2 touchdowns last week. Nice. And he's still only like $4,000. Big Ben at home with an Antonio Brown stack is a must-have as well. Yeah. I can't. We don't have time to give out like 10 lineups.
Exactly. So once again, Paulie, thanks for joining me. This has been another edition of the NFL Specials. It'll continue the rest of the month of November. If you want to check out Paulie, you can find him on YouTube at Paulies Sleepers. You can also find him on Facebook, and go ahead and promote your Facebook and all that stuff.
Well, I don't have like a Facebook Paulies Sleepers page.
You just use your
but I mean most of my friends that are in it. I mean you can look for me and I'll friend you and put you on there. But it's Paulies Sleepers on YouTube. Just type Paulies Sleepers into the search bar. There'll be a big P and my ugly mug, and just click on that, subscribe, and then if you click on the bell, you'll get the notifications. So shout out to Josh's brother, Jeremy Miller, for getting through the grapevine that my Sunday morning ones were not making it in time. I mean, they were posting on my end, so I think on YouTube it just takes a few hours sometimes.
Takes a minute to get to
So they were getting the notifications like at 4 p.m. Yeah. So I gave them out last night, and I'm going to start doing that more, but gained like 10 subscribers this week. It's
Nice.
it's slowly building.
That's awesome.
But right now we're just in it for
and hey,
for
dude,
fun
the podcast got a huge bump in the downloads just from posting it the very first day. So
oh, that's fantastic.
I hope the NFL stuff people still keep being interested in it.
Maybe doing it in the morning as the original.
Exactly. That was the original plan.
Yeah, maybe that's working out.
Yep. So once again, thanks for joining me, Paulie. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we're going to go out to some NFL Films music.
Thank you.